This is part 3 of the presentation, A Condensed History of Anderson and Nearby Points of Interest. If you remember last week, we finished at the end of World War I. So we're going to take up with Anderson beginning right after World War I, and we'll go through to the present time today. First picture up is a March 3rd, 1919 dated photograph of Remy's Plant 1. Any of you work in that building? Several of you. Had any of you ever seen this picture before? Some of you? Okay. A neat photograph. Of course, it's still Remy Electric in 1919. General Motors has not appeared on the scene as of 1919. Pendleton Falls Park. The park becomes into being in 1920. Actually, the pool opens for use 1921. Show of hands, how many went swimming? And oh, good. You know, I asked that a lot of places. I asked that question a lot of places, and they look at me like I'm from Mars. But I'm glad to see that a number of you enjoyed that pool. You know, before Pendleton turned this into a pool, it was the town dumping ground. It was the town dump. Yes, it was. And I have photographs. I do a whole program on this park, incidentally. But I've got old-time photographs that show this as a dumping ground. But some people in Pendleton, the town board specifically, had the foresight to realize, hey, we could do something with that. And so they did. They cleaned it up. They built a dam. And they dammed up the water. Well, the original pool size was about this area right here. What was so popular, they had to expand it. And the next year they expanded it again. And the year after that, they expanded it again. It just was so popular to finally bring it up to its present size. This is the picture that I first mentioned. Anybody guess where that's taken? Downtown.
Right there by,
It's the Union Building.
no,
That is the Union Building in here. Yeah, okay. You're getting warmer, but where are we? Gene?
How about Meridian Street, over here where the Paramount Theater is?
Meridian Street is just out of your view.
Yeah.
Paramount Theater will be here. This is 12th Street. This is Meridian. The Paramount Theater will be there in 6.5 more years. Anderson Fire Department, fire truck, advertising the third alarm at the Starland starting Sunday. I was curious, when did that movie play at the Starland? Well, I wasn't going to plow through years and years of newspapers looking at movie ads. So I took the easy way out. I went to Hollywood and found out when this third alarm film was released, and I found out it was released in January of 1923. So that gave me a starting point. Find out that it played at the Starland February 25th to February 28th, 1923. The advertisement that you see here is a few days before. Don't know the specific day of this picture, but because it was a film about firemen and fire trucks and fire, hence the use of the fire truck to advertise it. Neat photograph. Neat photograph. General Motors comes to Anderson, acquires Remy Electric. I won't go into the history of GM, but I will show you two aerial views that we have. This is the Columbus Avenue complex of what was once Delco Remy. Drive down that street today and that's at its height. Then the Scatterfield Road. Look at the cars. Look at the cars in the parking lot. You Remy guys, correct me, but I think at the height of Remy's employment in Anderson, it might have been around 18,000. Is that, am I 20?
Paper quoted 20 at one time.
Well, somebody, Don's saying 20, 18, 20, a lot of people, a lot of people. I know Guide, at the height of its employment, about that same time, was, I think, right about 6,000. So together, you're close to 25,000 people, roughly. You know, basketball's always been a big thing in our area. I ran across this photograph and have included it today just because I think it's so neat. This is the 1922 Dead Dog School basketball team. Everybody knows the Dead Dog School, do you not? Yes.
I lived right next to it.
She lived right next to it.
Time I was 6 months old till 5.
Now, there were 2 Dead Dog Schools.
Oh, really?
Is this the one you live next to? Up Boone Township? Boone Township? Okay, this is the Boone Township Dead Dog School. What's interesting in the photograph is the 3 boys in back, Howard, Don, and Bill Croce, and the 2 boys in front are Merle and Clint Worley. So you got 2 families. 2 families. That's it. They look like some toughs, don't they? Some of them. Remember the R Gang comedies that some of them kind of looked like they could come out of that. I just got the biggest kick out of that.
Where was that located?
That's located on County Road 100 West and intersection with County Road 1450, I think, north. Yeah, 1500 north. Union Chapel Church is real close by. School's origin of the name, I'm surprised nobody said where that came from. It's so simple, it's unbelievable. When the school was being built, there was a porch to enter the school. And one morning when the people came to work on the school, guess what they found underneath the porch?
Hence the name.
There's no more. That's it. If you're waiting for the rest of it, that's it. That's it. This one really tugs at my heart. Ella B. Kerr, Tuberculosis Hospital, 1924 to 1947. The reason why it tugs at my heart is because the lady who it's named for. If we could give an award for the most compassionate person in our city's history, she's certainly going to be near the top. She was born 1864. She died in 1962, 98 years old. She and her husband lived on the southeast corner of 10th and Fletcher. Do you remember the old Apex Beauty School house? That was their house. And Sunday mornings they would walk up 1 block to Fletcher to attend St. Mary's Catholic Church. I'm told that she was about this high and he was about this high. Don't have that picture. She arrives in Anderson about 1907. She had lost several family members to tuberculosis. So she has a real strong interest in providing care for TB. She gets active at St. John's Hospital, 1918. Men coming back from World War I in Europe, many of them have TB that they've acquired in the trenches of Europe. And so she ministers to them. There's a whole floor on St. John's that she's in charge of just for tuberculosis patients. She goes to the county, then we had a county health officer. She goes to the county health officer and she said, I'm going to need a facility to be able to house people and to provide wellness for them. And the ground I would like to have is the old Beechler property out on White River west of Anderson. Well, the city had plans for that property. Today it's Grandview Golf Course. So the second option, which was one she agreed to, was they said, we'll give you the old pest house. That was its name, Pest House. Took its name from the fact that if you had some kind of a communicable disease, that's where you went to isolate you so you wouldn't spread that disease. Tuberculosis was considered that, and many of the people who could afford it in Anderson decided, I don't want to send my loved one out there. If I can isolate him from my house, I've done the same thing. So they built and sold, and people bought, who could afford them, what were called care shacks. That's how you pronounce that name, care. They built care shacks, and people had these care shacks in their front yards or backyards, wherever they could put them. And the loved one would be in there. Well, that worked out for a while. But then the county says, we'll let you have the old pest house. So Ella jumps on that, and she converts the old pest house into the building that you see here. Two-story. These are all screened windows, all four sides of the building. On the other side of the window is a large porch area, and then the inside of the building. So you got porches all four sides, both floors. People who had tuberculosis went there, because at that time the only way they knew how to treat TB was fresh air and complete rest. That's how you treated tuberculosis. And so people went out here to receive that treatment, and they healed. They were cured. When they closed the hospital in 1947, and this is the humanitarian thing of it that I want to emphasize with you. When they closed that in 1947, Mrs. Kerr was credited through her care of saving 3,000 lives in this county. 3,000 lives. I had an opportunity to serve on a committee formed by the Herald Bulletin here a month or so ago to select the 50 most influential people in the history of Anderson. This will be rolled out to you beginning next week, the following week, by the Herald Bulletin. We selected them and then we ranked them. I lobbied hard for this lady, and I got her a pretty high spot. That's all I'll say. Yes?
Did you say the location of this?
Yes, the location of this is where Tanglewood Girl Scout Camp used to be. Now Anderson Community Schools has their conference center out there. East 10th Street. Boy, I love this place. In 1924, five businessmen from Anderson got together and they formed what was called the Moss Island Amusement Company. Moss Island Amusement Company. And across the street in the Union Building today, if we could get in, is a desktop seal for a letter embossed that says Moss Island Amusement Company. I've seen it. I'm doing my best to get it. It's still over there. I've been promised that we'll get it. The whole idea of forming the company was to provide a place of entertainment where people could come and dance, because in the mid-1920s, big bands were really, really popular. And so they built on 7 acres of land out on what used to be Moss Island Road. Today I think it's known as Gene Guston Way. Show of hands, how many know where the Green Lantern was? Okay. Okay, well then I don't need to go any further with that. They built the building. It was not air conditioned and it wasn't heated. The air conditioning was these screened windows on the back and windows on the other end, and you hoped you got a breeze. The heating was 4 heaters in 4 corners of the building for wintertime. But all of the big bands in the United States came here. There's not a band that you can name or an orchestra that you can name that didn't play here. They didn't. They all played here. Interesting story is Dick Powell. Dick Powell, the actor, in the summer of 1926, he was the vocalist for the Ross Reynolds Orchestra. Reynolds family was a local family of musicians. They lived at 2nd and Sherman Street on the southwest corner. The house is still there today. Powell sings with them that summer of 1926, and that vaults his career till he becomes a world-famous actor in movies. The Green Lantern remained open 1925 to 1933. The repeal of Prohibition in 1933 closed it. Now, you say the repeal, I would think the enactment of it. No, the repeal. Because the man who owned it at that time and operated it refused to sell alcohol, even though he legally could. People went other places, and so it closed. In 1935 to 1942, it becomes the Ayers skating rink, roller skating. In 1942, a group of businessmen decide to reopen it as the Green Lantern Inn, and one of the more popular orchestras to play there then was a local orchestra, the Donald Maines Orchestra. Ever hear of Donald Maines Orchestra? I had the really neat opportunity. I was giving this program about the Green Lantern down at the Harder House several years ago, and the lady held up her hand and I called on her. She said, "Come right on in, sir. There's a place right up front here." I called on her and she said Donald Maines was my husband. It's kind of neat. In that period of time, from 42 to 48, Glenn Miller was there, among others. It closed in 1948 because that form of entertainment was changing. People's taste in music was changing. The big band era was going out, so to speak. And rock and roll was coming in, wasn't it? And so it converts to a skating rink called Skatemore. I've skated at Skatemore. How many of you have skated at Skatemore? Yeah. Fun place, was it not? Fun place. Now, one little story about it. Do you remember, for those of you who skated there, do you remember the gravel pit that was behind it? There were actually 2 of them. This was the larger one, and then on back was a smaller one. Well, when I was a kid, the story was that John Dillinger had robbed a bank somewhere and driven his car, the getaway car, to the Green Lantern and shoved it in there to get rid of it. It had that connotation because it was well known that Chicagoland gangsters visited the Green Lantern on a regular basis. Reason being was they could come to Anderson, Indiana and just kind of blend in. People didn't know who they were. There was no guest book that they had to sign when they came in. Anyway, for years when I skated there, I'd look out that screen porch, and I'd say, wonder if John Dillinger's car's down there. Well, they tore it down in 1980. It was a public nuisance by that time. And the neighbors around there said, you gotta drain that and fill it in. It's a danger to children. So they did. I went down there the day that they drained it. Guess what was in the bottom of it? Nothing. How many remember the original wigwam? First game, November 21st, 1924. Opponent, Lapel. Final score, Anderson 30, Lapel 35. This painting by Ruth Van Byram is of that game, supposedly. Supposedly. That's a neat picture. How many ever attended a ball game in the old wigwam? Does that look familiar to you? I think we've got somebody here today that maybe even played in the old wigwam. I just got his attention.
I'm signing my name now.
He can't do two things at once anymore. Neat photograph. Something that we've just learned not too recently, the old scoreboard, one here and over here, those were built or made by the Fullwider Grimes Electric Company in 1924. And you know where Fullwider Grimes was located and where that was built? Have you ever been to Main Stage Theater for a play? Sure. Right there. Right there. I remember this date. I'm a sophomore in high school. We have a convocation in here in the morning. They dismiss the convocation just before lunchtime, so we go downtown to get lunch. You know, back then, that's before school cafeterias, so you either brought your lunch or you went home or you went downtown. I'm sitting in the alibi and the fire trucks start going down 14th Street. Run out and look, and the west there on 14th is just a smoke billowing up, so we run down there, and this is what we saw. So for my 3 years in high school, we had no gym to play in, so we played at Madison Heights. But in 1961, the wigwam, the one that's there today, opened. And my class, the class of 61, was the first one to have graduation ceremonies in this building. It was not fully completed in 1961 in June, but it was completed enough that we could have ceremonies. The unfortunate thing was that the sound system was not real good. So I and my other 460 some classmates were waiting for commands to stand up, sit down, do whatever, and we couldn't hear anything, so it was a discombobulated mess. That's the dedication game at the Wigwam in 1962. Do you remember those days when you filled that place? Zoo Island. How many of you heard of Zoo Island?
Been there.
Been there. Well, in 1923, the city acquires North Anderson through annexation, and the old Sparks Woods Park went with it, renamed it Shadyside. And a man by the name of Bert Julian, a local entrepreneur involved in making awnings, had an interest in small animals and children, and so he decided he would put some small animals in cages in this new Shadyside Park. It was real popular. Lots of people attended it, especially on Sunday afternoons. Take the children out to Shadyside Park and see at fox, raccoons, small animals, nothing large. It had some monkeys. It's so popular that Mr. Julian says, you know, maybe we could have a bigger zoo. So he looks around for some property and he finds some right next door to his business up at Birch and what was then North Meridian. We know it as Broadway today, on the northwest corner there. So he builds a zoo and he opens it July 1, 1928, and 3,000 people come that first day. 3,000 people come that first day. He's got a merry-go-round, a few other small rides, has a little dancing hall, lots of new different animals, some of them African animals. It's so popular that he says, I gotta get a bigger park. Kind of like in the movie Jaws, gotta get a bigger boat. So he looks around for a place to where he can expand, and he selects, and this lady was absolutely correct, a place out where Alexandria Pike crosses Killbuck Creek as a place to purchase and open up what he called Zoo Island. And Zoo Island became a really popular place for a couple of things. One, he had lots of wild animals. He built cages, poured concrete floors, built cages for the animals to be in. Animals like lions, tigers, bears. But also he utilized the water of Killbuck Creek for water activities. He's all set to go. What happened in 1929?
The craze.
Stock market crash in October of 1929 put the country into the Depression. 1933, he can't make it any longer. That's discretionary spending that people would have to use to go and attend something like that. And by 1933, discretionary spending was hard to come by for most families that would have patronized his. So he had a great idea, just bad timing. 1929, Welch Field opens in Anderson, well, south of Anderson, precisely 3 miles southwest of Anderson. Orrin Welch had come to our city from Ohio in 1926, and he had affiliated himself with the Anderson Aircraft Company, which had a grass landing strip in what is today South Edgewood. Homes now occupy where the grass landing strip was. He comes there to work for Fred Parker, who owns it. By the next year, he's running the place, and it's so popular, flying has become so popular, that he looks around for a bigger airport. And he goes to the Anderson Chamber of Commerce and asks for their help in locating a piece of property that would be fitting for an airport. Chamber of Commerce comes up with several ideas, but the one that they finally settled on was where the Lenders on the Point property used to be. Lenders on the Point, anybody not know where I am? Well, I know you know where I am, but anybody not know where Lenders was? Okay, that's the ground that the city Chamber of Commerce says this would be an ideal place, and so Orrin Welch builds an airport there. It's really a big deal. The Chamber of Commerce funds the purchase and erection of a big beacon to shine. The city of Anderson coughs up money to illuminate the field so that they can land and take off at night. 1929. Land and take off at night. The big floodlights that flooded that area had the equivalent candle power of 1.5 million lumens. Lumen is a measure of light output, but 1.5 million lumens lit that field up at night like it was daytime. And it was a very popular attraction for people who lived in Anderson at night just to drive out there and park and look at the lights. And of course watch the occasional plane take off and land. May 30th, 1930, that's back when we celebrated Memorial Day on Memorial Day. That was a little jab, incidentally, because I'm still for that. He decides they're going to have a dedication for the airport, and he brings to Anderson all of the best known flyers in the world for a weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they put on an air show at the Welch field that was second to none. Eddie Rickenbacker was here. Amelia Earhart was here. Weir Cook was here. I'm dropping names to impress you. They also, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company brought in their blimp, gave people a ride in the blimp over the city. Big, big day. Warren Welch, he has a fire, unfortunately, in one of his hangars, and decides he's going to move his operations because they can't replace the hangar. The beacon that had been purchased for him collapsed. It was on top of the building that burned. So he moves his operation and they leave the area. Warren is flying over the, I think it's the Himalayas, 1943. His plane goes down and he was never recovered. Guide lamp comes into being 1929. It operates as, well, I'll always call it guide lamp. Gene McMahon here somewhere?
Yeah, right here.
Right there. What would you always call it, Gene?
Guide lamp.
Guide lamp. You're darn right we would. You don't have red blood in your veins if you wouldn't call it guide lamp, do you? It operates until 1998 when it is sold. And it operates out there for, I think, through 2007 before it finally folds up. Of course, today that's all been torn down. And there's a new emergence of a building going on out there now. It looks like they're about ready to open. Remember when they used to light guide lamp up on Christmas time? Remember that? Like to drive out there and see that. Right out here, this picture was taken. It's a picture of the works process, also known as work project administration, all known as the WPA, part of Roosevelt's programs to put people back to work as a result of the Depression. And here the men are working in the street. Looks like they're pulling up the old streetcar rails and repaving it. I'm going to ask Roger Hensley, is that right, Roger? Is
I
that?
have no idea, I've never seen that before.
Well, that didn't do me good to call Roger, did. Either that, I'm saying that because of the pavers that are back here, Roger, the heavy equipment, but I'm not sure because I don't know the exact date of it.
It has to be close to 43, not 41.
43? Okay. How many of you have seen that photograph? That's a sad day in our history.
Was that a sit down?
It is a result of the sit-down strike, yes. 1936, in the fall of 1936, the UAWA, United Automobile Workers Association, shortened now to UAW, was negotiating with General Motors to be recognized as a union to represent the employees employed by General Motors. It was a contentious negotiations, won't go into all of that. But in Flint, Michigan, there were a number of workers at the Flint number 1 facility up there who went on sit-down strike. And that word spread here, and in December of 1936, some workers at Guide went on a sit-down strike. Basically shuts down the operation, putting pressure on the company to negotiate a settlement. Feelings are mixed, as I've read accounts in the paper of that time. About half of the people were for the union, about half the people were not for the union, not counting management, talking about the workers. An agreement is reached early in February of 1937, and the General Motors recognizes the union, and the strike is over. Unfortunately, there were still some people in Anderson who had opposed it. Their names were known by certain groups of people. And on Friday night, February the 12th, 1937, at the Gold Band Tavern on 22nd Street in Jackson Park, some people walk in, 8 or 10 of them, looking for and ask the owner, is so-and-so here? He says, no, he's not. They said, we have word he's here, we want him. Well, he's not here. So they turn around, they walk out. On their way out, they fire a couple of guns into the ceiling of the tavern, go across the street, pick up rocks and clubs, and throw it back at the man's establishment. Man grabs his shotgun, goes out and fires it over their heads. By now, the city police have arrived. It's shortly after midnight, February 13th, 1937. That is diffused, the situation is. But by early the next morning, the mayor of Anderson reports there are carloads of people riding through the downtown area armed. The mayor is alarmed, so he calls the governor and says, we've got a situation here in Anderson. And he says, plus I've been advised by a telegram from the city of Flint that there is a car caravan en route from Flint to Anderson bent on trouble. The mayor, or the governor, issues martial law in Madison County. Now, we're not used to martial law, but let me just give you one ramification of martial law. When martial law is imposed, all civil authority goes away. All civil authority. So at the moment that martial law was declared, the Anderson Police Department and the Madison County Sheriff's Department cease to function as same. And in comes the Indiana State Police and the Indiana National Guard. And they take charge of the situation. The thing that they're most interested in is intercepting that caravan of cars from Flint. So they go up and position themselves on State Road 9, just north of its intersection with State Road 28 on the north edge of Alexandria. And that's where this photograph is taken. And you can see a line of cars parked. They've intercepted those cars. They question the occupants. They search the cars. There's no weapons. They ask, what are your intentions? Why are you doing this? Well, we're going to Anderson just to lend support for what's going on down there. State police said there's nothing going on down there. You need to turn your vehicles around and head back to Michigan. And so 18 state police cars escort this caravan back to the Michigan-Indiana state line and then send them back on their way. Martial law remains in effect in Madison County for a period of about a week to 9 days after that. One of the effects, you have martial law, you're not to go out of your home. Yes, I heard a no really. That's one of the rules. Well, this night, February 13th, 1937, the Indians, that's the Anderson Indians, just in case there was a confusion, they were scheduled to play the Muncie Central Bearcats in the Wigwam. Can't play it. Have to cancel the game. The governor issues a partial reprieve. No, not that night. We got to the middle of the week, long about Wednesday, and he says, well, things are okay now. We'll begin to slowly lift this ban. And the first thing they do, they call Muncie Central and said, send your team over, we're going to play. So the Bearcats come to the Wigwam Wednesday night, February 1937. This is really one of the first evenings that people can get out. Everybody went to the Wigwam. Everybody can't get in the Wigwam, but everybody went to the Wigwam. Final score that night, Anderson 32, Muncie 19. Now, the city begins to heal. The Indians would play the Bearcats 3 times that school year, 3 times. And the Indians won all 3 games with the Bearcats. I love to tell this story in front of Reverend Matisse, because Reverend Matisse is a 1950 graduate of Muncie Central High School. And whenever he's in the audience and I tell the story, he just covers his ears. What's significant about me telling you this basketball story is the next month, March 1937. What happened? They won the state championship, Anderson did. They did. And I think that went a long way, probably more towards than anything else, the healing of this city over this incident. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in this room, I'm going to tell the story of this photograph and this man. Look at the date. Tomorrow is August 17th, 2015. 75 years since when this happened. Does anybody not recognize this photograph? Good. Good. It's Wilkie and Elwood on his day, August 17th, 1940. World War II. Guide lamp workers inspecting 90mm shell casings. When World War II broke out, Guide and Remy both got a lot of government contracts. The government was pretty insistent upon how things were done and when they were done. And one of the stories that comes out of this, early on, Guide got contracts for government work. We didn't have enough workers. We didn't have enough workers. The men were gone for the most part, and we didn't have enough workers. So the story is we contacted the commandant of Fort Harrison and said, you guys supply some manpower for us in order to be able to fulfill these contracts. Second shift on a Monday night. At the front door, ready to go to work, is a whole bunch from Indianapolis of women, almost all of whom were ladies of the night. I'm not implying that any of them, but they were sent up here to work, and we put them to work. Most of them lasted one night, but several stayed. This picture is taken on Main Street, shows the old Saratoga Bar. What's interesting is, look at the wagon drawing the beer, drawn by horse. The owner of this photograph is Mary Jo Rock. And she gave it to me, and she gave it to me with this story. In her family, they owned that beer distributing company. And in World War II, there was gas rationing. Anybody not know what gas rationing is? Well, he couldn't use his normal delivery trucks, used too much gas. So, that's how he delivered his beer. This is a picture of the Paramount Theater marquee. It says, General Motors Victory Review. I looked up and found out that Delco Remy supplied 1,841 employees to the World War II effort. Guide lamp, 390. This is a photograph taken on Columbus Street. You notice plant one, you look at the people looking out the windows, you look at the people up on the roof. And what's going on is taking place right here. These government contracts that the plants were awarded, if they met the quality standards and they met the delivery standards and all of the other standards that were imposed upon them, as a reward, the military would come in and award them a Army Navy E flag. Bill Knapp, our exhibit coordinator, found this for us. It's not one of them that was given to either Remy or Guide, but this is exactly what it was like. This is the ceremony at Remy. Look at WHBU. You see, Remy received 2 awards. You got the pennant, that was the first one, and then they would come back and review how you were doing, and if you were still doing well enough, met all the specifications, you got a star that was sewn on the flag. Remy receives 2 awards during World War II, of which Ted Vincent was really proud. Until Ted came into my office one day when Dick Bowman was in there. And Ted's all puffed up, talking about the 2 awards that Remy got. Dick Bowman leans forward and he says, Guide got 5 of them. Guide got 5 of them. That ended that conversation that day. VJ Day in Anderson, 1945. That's Main Street. Melvin Biddle. Melvin Biddle, Anderson resident, receiving the Medal of Honor, Harry Truman, on the White House lawn, October 30th, 1945. Only Medal of Honor winner from Anderson, not the only Medal of Honor winner hired from Madison County. There is one buried in the Parkview Cemetery in Alexandria that's a Medal of Honor winner from the Spanish-American War. The modern era. Remember when we had a professional basketball team here? Yeah. They won the National Basketball League championship in the 48-49 season. The National Basketball League, the NBL, now is the NBA. Ike Duffy and the Duffy Packers. They played in the Wigwam. Sun Valley Speedway opens in 1948. I threw this in just for the enjoyment of one of our members here today. I can't remember. Are you a big fan of this guy or this guy? I can't remember which one.
The one with the cowboy hat.
The one with the cowboy hat. Okay. Okay. Laura Gwaltney is a big fan of Roy Rogers. Maybe some of you have seen her American Cowboy exhibit that we've had over here a couple times. Very, very popular. Speedway photograph. March 28, 1954. This is Arrow Avenue. It's between 8th Street and 9th Street. Dick Bevelheimer's shaking his head. You remember that day, Dick? Yeah. You remember this house?
Yes.
House is still there. House is still there. This was Mulvane Avenue, I think. We'd call it an alley, but it had a name, Mulvane Avenue. I'm in Fort Wayne. Spring break. Staying with my grandparents. I'm next door at the boy's house I'm playing with. He's got the TV on. I see that picture. Oh, wow, that's in my neighborhood. There was a tornado there. I go next door for supper to my grandparents. They're all hush-hush. They know it too, but they aren't going to tell me because they don't want to upset me. I told them. John Kennedy visited us on October 6th, 1960, en route to the White House later on that year. You know, Kennedy is one of 11 U.S. presidents to have paid official visits to our city. 11 of the 44, 25% of the U.S. presidents have paid official visits to this city over the years. Community Hospital opens in May of 1962. We built our 5th Madison County Courthouse in 1973. 3rd one on that site, 5th one in the county. Hoosier Park and Casino opened 1994. The casino in 2008. Showed this to somebody the other day and they were just amazed that Hoosier Park had been there that long. It just seems like it's been more recent than that. Nestle in June of 2008. Anderson yesterday and today. When the mayor was putting together this proposal that he showed you, one of the things that he wants to do is create two-way streets. And he said, Steve, have you got any pictures of downtown Anderson when we had two-way traffic and parking on both sides of the street? And I said, yeah, we do. This is one of them. Isn't that a great picture? That's today. Look at the crowd in this one. We think, our best guess is that this photograph was taken July 4th, 1935. 1935 is a guess. We're pretty sure on the July 4th because look at all of the bunting. And look how they're dressed. How many of you remember when the sidewalks of downtown Anderson were packed on a Friday and a Saturday night? Packed. My dad was a life insurance salesman and Mother would come downtown on a Friday or Saturday night to shop and he'd walk along the street with me holding my hand, and because he was a life insurance salesman he knew everybody in town. And we'd take a few steps and he'd meet somebody, we'd talk, we'd take a few more steps, he'd meet somebody. Here I am. Same day, just taken up around 10th and Meridian, Old Anderson Bank here, the Anderson Hotel. Did you know we had a theater in downtown Anderson right up here called the Ritz?
Oh, yeah.
Called the Ritz.
And the candy shop next door.
Any guesses as to where that is? What did I hear? Main Street. This is Main. This is 11th. Anderson Police Department sits right here today. Okay. But that's the Grand Hotel. Next to it and out of view is the Grand Opera House. I'm judging 1920s. Guys that are car buffs, would you agree with that?
Yes.
What is it?
29.
1929. Okay, 1920s, that's close enough, isn't it? Main Street. Now you laugh. I've got a thing about when I take my pictures, I don't like people in them. So if you come downtown on Sunday afternoon, you got no problem. You take all the pictures you want because there aren't going to be any people in them. Remember Rosenbaum Jewelers?
Yeah.
Notice the architecture of the windows. Okay? There they are today. There they are today. Great old picture. This is Main. We're getting ready to turn onto 5th Street. Grunwald House. Okay? This area of our city really prospered and built up 1868, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74. 6 years. This area just flourished because the hydraulic canal was being built from Daleville to Anderson that would bring all kinds of prosperity to our city, and it would dump out into White River where Grand Avenue and Alexandria Pike and Milton Avenue and University Boulevard, they all come together today. That's where the hydraulic canal would dump back into White River. Grand Avenue through Park Place is the old canal. But in anticipation of all the business, this area built up at that time.
Is that the Main Street Bridge?
No. Anybody know the official name of this bridge? The official name. Boy, that scared you when I said that, didn't it? This is the John F. Kennedy Bridge of Character. John F. Kennedy Bridge of Character is the official name for what I call the Blue Bridge. I opened the program 3 weeks ago with a postcard that said, "Greetings from Anderson." Opened each last Sunday and this Sunday with that same postcard. I closed this entire presentation with the following postcard. And with that, we're done.